Hey, Bill DeWeese here from voice-over-trading.org, coming to you today from my basement. Why my basement? Well, because I recently moved my studio to my basement. And you may have followed some of my earlier videos where I gave you a tour of my studio, which was formerly on the second floor of the house, which at the time I thought was the quietest place in the house. And the number one rule of setting up your studio is find the quietest place in your house. Well, there's a room down in the basement that I have two college-age sons that at some point or another they have both occupied that as their own bedroom because it's the farthest away from everybody else in the family. So since they're no longer in that room, I found out after spending some time down here that it's really it's even quieter than the closet space I had upstairs. So I've moved it. But I wanted to accomplish three things. Number one is I wanted to find the quietest place in the house. I wanted to streamline my workflow and process so that I'm working off one computer. I've been working off an office computer and a studio computer, but I wanted to consolidate all of that into one computer, again, to make my workflow faster and easier. And then number three, I wanted to be able to run my ISDN from the same machine, which, by the way, it's a PC-based program, but I'll show you how I do it off of my Mac. And if that doesn't make sense to you yet, it will in just a couple minutes. So follow me and I'll show you the setup and what we've got and what we're doing back here. So this is the room I am now occupying, which is it's my office and my studio. As you walk in, you'll see, the first thing you'll see is my Whisper Room recording booth. It's a 3x5 recording booth, and we'll take a closer look at that in just a couple of minutes. But if you come around here, there's not a lot of space, but there's plenty of space for my needs in terms of recording and office work. So as I said, the first thing that I did once I found the quietest place in the house is I wanted to get rid of one of my machines. I was using a PC to run my studio, and I was running a Mac for my office. And after using a Mac this past year, I've really come to like the Mac quite a bit. It's a lot easier to work with in terms of playing with hardware and software. It plays well with others. You get less driver conflicts and all of that. So technically, it's just less hassle, which I like. So I decided to go Mac, which presents another problem because I use an ISDN PC software program, but I'll show you how I solved that in just a moment. So what I did is I got myself, this is a brand new 27-inch iMac. I got as much processing power as I could, 2 terabytes of hard drive space, so I have plenty of horsepower and storage behind it. I'm running Adobe Audition, which is my software recording program and editor of choice. And right now, actually, I'm in the middle of, well, not quite the middle. I'm actually on the front end of working on a 71-page medical narration. You've never lived as a voiceover talent until you tried to record a 70-plus page medical narration. It's like all pharmacological terms. It's insane, but this is what I'm working on. But what I wanted to show you is what I did, even though this is actually my studio computer, even though my studio is over here. What I've done is I'm running a mirrored monitor, which is actually a small Vizio television. It's a 22-inch Vizio, and it's HDMI, so it runs an HDMI into a Mac mini port into the back of my iMac, and it's in mirrored mode, so that whatever you see over here on my main computer, you also see right here on my studio computer. And my keyboard is a Bluetooth keyboard, so I can just pick it up and bring it in here, and it's the same on both screens, so I can operate it in here. And of course, in my studio, in case you haven't seen the studio before, I use a Neumann TLM 103 microphone, the Lexicon Alpha sound card, and I don't know if you can see this down here or not. This is an Aphex 230 vocal strip. It has a tube preamp. I run it with just a touch of compression and EQ just to sweeten it a little bit, but I try to keep the signal as flat as I can. I don't want too much processing. Most of my clients like a little bit, but and some like none at all, so I can give them pretty much whatever they want. So this is the studio setup. So again, I'm in the quietest room in the house. I'm working off one computer now, which again, it makes my workflow easier because I can do all of my work, whether it's email or whatever, off the same computer. Very, very easy. But it presents another problem, and that is, what do I do with ISDN? Now, if you're not familiar with ISDN, very briefly, what it is a technology. It's an older technology. It's like an 80s, 90s technology that allows you to transfer high amounts of data, high-speed data, over the telephone lines to another location. And it in essence allows me to, or any voiceover talent who has it, to patch into another studio any place in the world and do a recording session. Now the challenge is there is, if you want to do it the way I do it, and that is use software instead of buying the $3,000 box piece of hardware, there's a program called Audio TX that runs on PC. So what I did was this, and this is the thing I'm most excited about because it actually works, and it all now works off the same computer. If you take a look over here on my iMac, you may or may not be aware, if you have a Mac, you're probably at least somewhat aware, that Mac runs a program called Boot Camp. And what I'm going to do here is actually, I'm going to reboot my computer. Boot Camp allows you to install Windows on your Mac. And actually, the Mac, oh wait, let's see here, what am I doing? I don't want to mess up all that I've recorded of my medical narration, so let's, let's save this just to be safe. I think I have it, but just to be safe. Okay, no problem. All right, so we're going to restart here. Boot Camp allows you to install Windows on your Mac and run it natively. In other words, not in a virtual environment like Parallels or VMware. You can actually boot from Windows, and it's a full-blown Windows 7 setup, just as if you're running it off of an HP or a Dell or any other computer. A lot of people actually think that Macs make better PCs than most other PCs because they're made really well. And this is not an endorsement of Mac, I'm just telling you how this works. Now, you'll notice this gives me the option to boot up in either Mac or Windows. So what I'm going to do is select Windows, and I'm actually now going to boot this Mac into Windows mode, which allows me to operate it just like anybody's regular PC. And so what I've done is I've installed a program called Audio TX. AudioTX.com is the website. The software, when I bought it, was $1,000. I think now it runs about $800. But you buy that instead of the hardware box that you might buy through Telos or Comrex or any of the number of manufacturers of ISDN boxes. And I'll show you, I'll actually demonstrate and show you how it works in just a moment. But it allows me to dial in. I do recording sessions with studios in Los Angeles and New York and Nashville and Kansas City, and any recording studio that has ISDN, it allows me to dial in or for them to dial me up, which is usually the way it works. And I do my recording session in real time, just as if I'm sitting there in the studio in Chicago or wherever the case may be. Now, in just a moment, interesting, just as in real life, it takes Windows longer to boot on this, just as it does on any other computer. But here we go, Windows 7. Again, this is a full-blown Windows 7 setup. And again, it's set up to mirror exactly. Let's take a look in the monitor, or in my studio here, to make sure the monitor is doing the same. It should be, in theory. And there's Windows. So we got Windows in there too. So now what I'm going to do, if you follow me for just a moment, I'm going to show you precisely how we do an ISDN session. And I'm just simply going to run a test, but I'm going to bring up the program Audio TX. And by the way this is all hooked up, I don't know if you can see this or not, but there is a cord that runs, this is a tight space here. This black cord that runs into my studio has on the other end of it a little piece of hardware called an Icon Diva, which allows my computer to communicate with the ISDN. So this black cord runs over here, and I don't understand all the technical ins and outs, but just so you can see what the setup looks like. This is called an NT1 box. This is an Adtran NT1 box, which is hooked into my telephone outlet, which is running ISDN service. Now, this will only work if you have purchased and installed ISDN service. It won't work off your regular telephone service. As you can see, I have two green lights, which means I'm connected. The line's ready to go. And what we'll do now, fingers crossed, is I'm going to call the Telos test line. Telos manufactures ISDN equipment, and they have a test line where you can dial in where they play music, and you can simply make sure that things are working. So we're going to dial in. As you can see right now, it's trying to connect. And there it is. We have ISDN. And now I could actually walk into my studio, and I could be patched into any other studio, again, in the world that has ISDN in their studio. Oh, no, and I didn't mention, you may wonder about, this is my mascot, by the way. This, Lowrider. This was a white gift, or a white elephant gift my wife picked up at Christmas and let me have it because I loved it so much. I've made it my official mascot. So this is how I start my day, with a little hot coffee and low rider. Hey, thanks for joining me today. And again, what I hope you take away here are some possible solutions if you're looking to streamline your workflow. Find the quietest place in your house, first of all. But secondly, you can mirror monitors so that you could share the same computer machine for your office as you do with your studio. Again, if it helps your workflow, which it certainly does mine. But also it allows me to boot into Windows mode so that I can use ISDN, which allows me the capability of being represented by various agents all around the country and all around the world, and to have access to work with those studios that otherwise I couldn't. So again, thanks for checking out the video. I hope you've taken away some ideas that you can use. And don't forget, my next live broadcast, video broadcast, is coming up a week from this Thursday, which is January the 12th. 7 Central, 8 Eastern, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific. I think I got all of that right. And the topic, what I'll be talking about, is a systems approach to your voiceover business. Have you ever wondered what to do next? You feel like there's like 100 or 1,000 different things that maybe need to be done, and you jump from one thing to the other, and you're not sure where you should be spending your time? Well, if you take a systems approach to your voiceover business, it's like setting up, it's like looking at the dashboard of a car, and you can look and monitor the important systems of your voiceover business, so you can see where you're doing well, what you're not doing so well, and where you need to spend and invest time and resources and attention. We'll talk about that. Also, I'm going to devote a significant amount of time to answering your questions. Anything that has to do with voiceovers, email those to me at voiceoverexpert@gmail.com, voiceoverexpert@gmail.com. This live video broadcast will be at this website. You do not need a special login. Simply go to voiceovercoachlive.com, voiceovercoachlive.com. Again, a week from this Thursday, which is January the 12th, Thursday night. Talk to you then.